I've always said I wish I could just tape record this, because that's like the number one question I get asked is, hey, wait a minute, you were a school teacher. How did you start a fly fishing show?
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Remote No Pressure Podcast. We're so excited that you joined us for another week and another episode. Week after week after week, we've just had the best guest, and this week is no exception. We have Mr. Curtis Fleming from Fly Rod Chronicles on the Pursuit channel. He's going to talk to us a little bit about what he does, what drives him, how he got into fly fishing. It's an unbelievable episode. Welcome to the podcast. Let's light the fire. Well, today on the Remote No Pressure Podcast, we have Curtis Fleming on the horn with us. Thanks for joining us, Curtis.
Jeff, thanks for having us this evening.
Man, I'm very excited that we got to connect finally. And if for the people who don't know, Curtis hosts a show called the Fly Rod Chronicles. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Curtis?
Yeah. So, Fly Rod Chronicles, we're going into our 16th season, and we're currently airing our 15th season. We do 13 episodes every year, and I always tell people regarding our show, if you want to learn how to fly fish, buy a Lefty Cray DVD. And because, our show's about our travels, about the people that we meet, the culture, and our experiences. Fly fishing is just the catalyst to get us there.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to our philosophy and our approach. Now, reading on your bio, you came out of oil and gas, the oil and gas business. Am I correct?
That was a very, very short stint in my life. I was a teacher. I was in education for 15 years.
Can you tell us a little bit about your transition from teaching and to where you are right now, Curtis?
Yeah, I was not the greatest student in the world. I always found school hard. I had a difficult time focusing, and when I went to college, I overcame that focusing issue, and I think it came down to I was paying for my education, and at that point it was like, all right, let's get serious, and then I just fell in love with education, and I become a teacher, and I worked at a private school right outside of Northern Virginia, and with emotionally disturbed youth and kids. And what I would do every year as a teacher, I would ask our 80-plus student body, I would ask them why they wanted to go fly fishing. And if they had an interest, I would take them to a place in West Virginia, which was a Trout Unlimited Orvis endorsed fly fishing school. And I would take the top 6 essays. And that enabled me to find a passion in fly fishing. Was always in the outdoors. I'm a son of a coal miner here in West Virginia, and my father, when he'd get those rare days off, we'd always hunt and fish. But by taking these kids fly fishing, I fell in love with it, and I thought it was very artistic. And after 15 years and in education, and I started to do a little bit of a gas and oil project, and I become the CEO and president of the company. I had a passion that I wanted to do a fly fishing show that was not about Curtis Fleming. I wanted it to be about the people we meet. I wanted it to be about celebrities, but the normal folks, the veterans, breast cancer survivors. And that, I think, is what's taken our show to the number one watched fly fishing show on TV right now.
Where can people find your show? Where can people watch it, Curtis?
Yeah. So for 15 seasons, we were on the Outdoor Sportsman group. And just this year, we made a transition over to Pursuit Channel. And currently we air 6 times a week. And we're on these are all Eastern Standard Times. We're on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. And then we're on it Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. and then Thursday at 6 a.m., Friday at 1 a.m., and then at noon on Saturdays.
Wow.
And then we also we air up in Canada on Wild TV. Our shows are and this is one of the main reasons for moving networks. I've become good friends with the CEO and president, Rusty Falk of Pursuit Channel, and he did. We have a little bit in common, and that's as the new generation comes in and is taking over with electronics and everything. It's sit back and let's watch what your kids do.
Mm.
And that's what they are doing with streaming and getting this show out. We just found out that like we're the number one watched outdoor show over in Asia. And as silly as that sounds, you think, well, why didn't maybe Ted Nugent or Jim Shockey? Well, they don't hunt over there much, and they love fishing. And I think we really cater to that fishing demographics. And I've joked that I'm maybe compared to the Dennis Rodman of North Korea in Asia.
You're gonna start getting piercings and wearing dresses. Is that what you're telling us, Curtis?
No, sir. I'm proud of my West Virginia heritage, and my father's 78 years old, and he don't believe in timeouts, so I don't think I would go there.
That's great. Now, I get a lot of emails, Curtis, from people who say, I want to be a fishing guide, or I want to do something in the fly fishing industry. How did you start? I mean, did you start just with a camera on local television, or did you have some money to invest to hire a crew, or can you tell us a little bit about that process, Curtis?
Absolutely, Jeff. And I've always said I wish I could just tape record this, because that's like the number one question I get asked is, hey, wait a minute, you were a school teacher. How did you start a fly fishing show?
Right.
And and it is interesting. And it was quite the opposite. We started right off the bat national. We got a contract with the Sportsman Channel, and I'll tell you a little bit about how we started that. Of course, yes, it does. It takes money, and my investment into the gas and oil business enabled me to have the funds to self-start it. To be out there nationally, I compare it a lot to NASCAR. If you're not winning races, you don't get those pretty stickers on your car. So I knew that I had to have a good show, a good concept. I knew that I was not that great caster, that great fisherman that's out there. But like yourself, I felt like I could tell a story. And again, I wanted it to be about the art of fly fishing. So I had the concept in mind of how I wanted the show to come out. And we went, I hired a production company. We went and shot a pilot program in West Virginia and put a couple shows together. And the first time I saw it, I looked at it and said, I'm going to be a teacher for the rest of my life. appreciate this because there was big fish. All the elements was there. It had a good story.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what we were missing? The one thing we were missing.
What's that?
Music.
Ah, yeah.
So just that background music takes that dull, slow time, and and when the fish runs upstream, the music, is more upbeat, right?
Right.
So the music was the issue. We had a good storyline. I sent it into the network, and I was thinking, I'll never hear back from them. And boom, I get a phone call, and they're like, "Wow, we love your show. It's artistic. You tell a good story. You act like a third grader when you catch a fish." The excitement and the build up. Can you give us 12 more shows like the one you just sent us?
Wow.
So my next process was, okay, my wife, who is a principal, how do I go home and convince her that I'm quitting my job and starting a fly fishing show? So I do make a challenge to all your audience, to any man out there, because I truly think I'm the toughest guy in the world. Because if any man can come home and go tell their wife they're going to quit their job and start a fishing show and know nothing about it, yep. I please keep your phone on record. I want to watch that.
Yeah. So how did it go over with your wife?
I got the coolest wife in the world. I really do. We've been married 26 years and two lovely daughters in college. And so I came in and she was on the treadmill and she was working out, and I built up my nerve and I said, "Honey," I practiced this over and over in front of the mirror, and I said, "Honey, I would like to quit my job and start a fly fishing show."
Wow.
And she looked at me and she shook her head and she said, "Okay." So I thought, okay, I need to make a run for it. I just got an okay. So I ran upstairs. I opened the refrigerator. I cracked a Coors Light. I was like, wow, that was so cool. And about 2 minutes later, my wife walked up the steps. She took her earbuds out of her ears and she said, "Honey, I didn't hear you downstairs. What was your question?" So I had to reinstate the question, and my wife asked me. She said, "Is there any money in it?" And I said, "Honey, I don't know, but I'm going to find out." And my wife and I, the greatest thing that I fell in love with her about is that she was a Christian, and we've got strong faith, and we've always felt that money's not in that dollar bill. Money's in happiness and health, and I knew that I had a little bit of money to invest into this, and I had a couple years to figure it out. And it just so happened my father, who is a West Virginia coal miner who has a 12th grade education and someone that I highly, highly think the world of and just thrive on every word he said. He showed up at my house and he said, "Son, you're looking worried. Tell me what's bothering you about this." And I said, "I don't know. I've never really failed at anything. I don't want to fail." And he said, "Can I tell you the worst thing that can happen to you?" And I was like, "You're going to tell me the worst, like the bottom worst thing?" He said, I'm going to tell you the worst thing that can happen to you." And he said, "So for the next couple years, you get to go on some incredible fishing trips that men dream about, and go to some incredible rivers and streams and fish the flats." And he goes, "And then you spend all of your money." He said, "At that point, you just go get a job like every other American.
Hmm.
And I looked at him and I was like, that's really the worst thing that can happen to me. So 15 seasons later, I have written that on my whiteboard, and I keep that in mind. And again, it comes back to every year I set goals on. I want to fish another year. I want to fish another 5 years. I want to fish 10 more years. And I just absolutely love it. I've never had a plan B. I've had colleges approach me to come back and teach and bring a fly fishing curriculum into their schools. And I've always said, that's my 401k. And my father, just said to me a few years ago, he said, son, everybody says they're going to work and they're going to save money and then they're going to retire. And he said, that age is usually like 70. And he said, you know what? Most people don't have the money and they're too tired. He said, you have done this exactly the way it should be.
Wow.
So as you can tell, my father at 78 years old is my hero. He's a Marine and he's a very, very smart man.
He sounds very wise, like a very
Yeah.
wise. Now, have you and your father always had a great relationship, Curtis?
Always. Now, I've just always had that respect and to be, to retire from the coal mines in West Virginia, a very tough way of life. I just, I watched my grandfather suffocate with black lung and beg for oxygen. And going into my senior year, I snapped an Achilles tendon and knew that going to the next level to play basketball wasn't an option. And after 2 years of goofing off and not making the right decisions, my father took me in a coal mines and we spent 8 hours inside of a coal mines. And that very next morning, I enrolled in college, and I said, there's no way an English test can be as hard as what our coal miners do.
Wow. And you know what? It's that appreciation, Curtis. That's the reason that you were named in the top 55 best things that have happened to West Virginia. I think you have a true appreciation of that.
I do. And I love our state and we grew up, and we don't have to give age away here, Jeff, but I do have one serious question that my office manager asked me to ask you, and that is she wanted to know if Troutman was your actual God-given name.
Actually, it is. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because she said that is so cool. She thought that was so cool. And then I had to kind of one up it and tell her a story that I know a guy that runs a resort that knows nothing about fly fishing. It's never casted a rod in his life. And I just beg him for his name. And I just keep going to him. And I'm like, you've got the coolest name in the world. I want your name. And it's Jake Hatch.
Wow.
I mean, what a perfect, and what a waste. He's wasting that name,
You got to catch the hatch, I mean, there's so many things with that. My mind is going crazy.
So, she had told me today when I left the office when we were going through your social media and how things are working in your life and she's like, that's the Lord upstairs, that's awesome. And she knew that was your God-given name, but I think that's really cool.
Thank you very much. It's very humbling.
Yeah.
Thank you. So let's talk. I mean, fishing is important, and I've talked to a lot of people. You cut a deal with TFO to have your own Curtis Fleming rod. We had Rick Pope on the show, And one of the things that he said that I will never forget, Curtis, I said, what is your number one achievement in life? And he said it wasn't, he knew Lefty Cray, really well, and all the people, he said the people I've met along the way, that's what made this journey so wonderful. So can I ask you a question about legacy? Again, not giving away ages, and you're not an old man by any means, but it sounds to me like you're more legacy focused than you are on catching a fish. Am I right?
Yeah, it's humbling, Jeff. It really is. And you brought up the name Rick Pope, and not too many people know this, and Rick probably doesn't want to give away his age, but Rick was a world-class skeet shooter.
Right.
and that was his first claim to fame. But I think one of the greatest things that Rick Pope has done is that if any veteran out there, or any breast cancer survivor out there, or any kid out there really, really needs a fly rod, he has and will find a way to get it to them. One of the most generous men that I've ever met, and proud to call Rick Pope friend.
Wow.
And Jeff, there's so many Rick Popes out there. And, with social media today, people can just, they can get on and they can blast the president. They can say, I can outfly fish Lefty Cray. They can say, they can make all the claims that they want. But, when it comes down to it, I have met some of the most interesting, some of the greatest people in this fly fishing industry, which really does and is loaded with a lot of egos, because everybody wants to be good at it when they try it. And, as Lefty once told me, he's like, by the time you master this and by the time that you actually say, I'm good at this, it's time to die.
Mm.
It takes that long to master it to that level. And, we have done over 200 episodes, and it's just mind boggling. And I remember having a conversation once with my father, and he said, so how's this business work? He's like, you're going to Alaska. And I said, he goes, how do you get the money to get there? And I said, if they give me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a beer, I'm going. And then and then it becomes a business. Then you got to figure out, how can you afford airtime? How can you pay your camera staff and your videographers and your sound people and the producer, and that was the part that is tough. And when I look back and now that I'm told, we're the longest running fly fishing show, and to look back at over 200 episodes that I've been able to look at that camera and know that millions of people are going to see it and say, hey, today we're on the New River, the second oldest river in the world in West Virginia. Hey, welcome to Fly Rod Chronicles. We're in Brazil. We're catching peacock bass. Hey, welcome to Fly Rod Chronicles. We're down here with my good friends the Johnsons in Belize. Hey, and I look back, and some of these guides, and I tell everyone I'm the quarterback. I'm the guy at the end of the game that the real pretty announcer comes up to me and my hair's straight and my uniform's all clean, and I'm the one that gets to tell the story. But the people around me, from production, from videographer, from my family, from and the guides, I just can't tell you how hard that the guides out there that we've met works to put us in situations to make good TV.
Wow.
And it's pretty cool. And everywhere I go, it's like, I can't wait to meet the fly shop owner. I can't wait to meet the the guy that's going to be going down the river with us, or the guy that's going to, mount up the horses and take us cross country.
It's pretty amazing. I feel the exact same way. It's like some of the people I've met, and it drives me every morning. It's almost like I have to do it. I'm so fascinated. And your assistant, it's Sonia, correct?
Yeah, Sonia. Yes.
Okay, so Sonia sent over your bio and sent over like a press kit there in Dropbox, and just reading through that and all through that, Curtis, it alludes to your humor, with my, with the humor this and humor that. And I think you're a kind of funny guy. I mean, let's be honest, you're pretty funny. Although when you ate that salmon fly, that was just absolutely disgusting in that episode. So people go to YouTube, look up Curtis's Fly Rod Chronicles, and check out the salmon fly he ate. It was gross. But anyways, so I think you're pretty funny. But really, watching your show, seeing what you're doing, I really think that the reason why your show is successful is because you show a genuine interest in other people, and you're out to change lives. You've been in this at a long time, and I think the reason why is because your authenticity and you still look amazed at what you do after all these years. It still looks like you're having fun. So.
Yeah. And Jeff, apparently you missed the episode with me in a two-piece.
I'm kind of glad I missed that episode, though.
Believe me, if that ever happened, that's buried somewhere in the Tetons. That'll never come out.
Yeah.
I think I've always used humor as a tool, as a, my first camera guy who happened to be the town cop that started traveling with me. He used to say, if we'd have a flat tire, which we show that we want to show the real stuff.
Sure.
And I'd be like, oh, we're gonna miss our plane. He'd always say, you know what? If this is the worst thing that's going to happen to us, we'll be all right.
Sure.
and after he said it about 15 times in different situations, and people were bleeding, and it was like, hey, if this is the worst thing that's going to happen to us today, it'll be all right. And I learned to adopt that attitude, and with it, again, with humor, I had a guide one time right at the very beginning, and I learned this, and I learned, if you go to other people's waters, listen to your guide. Listen to your guide. And I had a country music songwriter of the year for 3 years with us, and I watched this guide, and he was telling me as we were floating down the Deschutes River, he said, I've noticed something about you, Curtis. And he said, you may want to work on this. And I said, what's that? And he said, you're a manic fly fisherman. And I was like, why am I a manic fly fisherman? He's like, dude, when you catch a fish, you flip backwards. You go, words come out of your mouth that I know your people's going to have to edit, and you flip out. But when you're not catching fish, I'm worried that you're going to jump out the boat and try to drown yourself. So, and after looking back at the tape, I was thinking, wow, I got this wrong. Because when it comes down to it, everybody says you make a 30-minute show. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, we went to Brazil and we shot 16 hours of footage that we had to get down to, by the time you do commercials, that we had to edit down to 21 minutes and 30 seconds.
My word.
So, a lesson learned from the guide. The second lesson, the country music songwriter thought he knew everything about fly fishing and wouldn't listen to his guide. And I listened to everything my guide said, and I watched the guy walk away from the country music songwriter and said, "So you don't want to listen to your God today?" And that day I had a 30 plus fish in the boat, and the songwriter didn't catch a fish.
Wow.
So for all those hardworking guides out there that pays their dues and that learns their waters and learns the bugs, when I go there, I'm an open book. Teach me, give it to me. I'll take everything you can give me.
Has that been your approach in everything in life?
Really is. And again, I've got two beautiful daughters that are in college. I got one that's in grad school at WVU, and I got one that's a sophomore at WVU, and I'm just so blessed. They've got incredible GPAs, and my youngest has got a 4.0, and you'd think my gene pool, with my 1.8, I would bring them down to at least a 3.3. They got cool jobs. I got to fish with I think one of the greatest basketball coaches in the world, Bob Huggins, and right now the Mountaineers are currently ranked number 7 in the nation, and they play Kentucky. And you can hear the excitement come out, and I treat life like that, and my girls, they grew up, and they'd look at this show and be like, not that cool. It's we don't want to do it. And I used to call them mall girls, and I'd say, you guys like going to the mall with your mom, and that's all right. And I thought, I'll never ever ever push my daughters into the sport of hunting and fishing. And I tell you, we were in Vegas for the SHOT Show, and we were up for 5 awards, and it was like life was great. Everything was good. We had an incredible season. We're in Vegas. We had a charter flight, and the earth stopped moving in Caesar's Palace, and my daughter received a phone call, and her best friend Hunter was killed in a car accident.
Wow.
And to watch my daughters go from, we're in Vegas, life is great, to, oh my gosh. And this is a kid that, we grew up with and was close to the parents, and all at once, those 5 national, international awards didn't matter. And we processed it, we got through it, and it was a January accident. And then March, my oldest daughter, Laken, came up to me and said, "Dad, I want to do a show in honor of Hunter." And she said, I want to be part of this. And I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And she said, "I want to hunt for the first time." I said, "Cool." So I'm thinking, we're going rabbit hunting. No, she planned a trip to the swamp, and she wanted to alligator hunt, and she got her first alligator.
Wow.
And then my youngest daughter, Autumn, she wanted to catch a shark on a fly rod. So we did that, and we made a show about it, and we made a show to celebrate Hunter's life. And Jeff, since that, I cannot shake these girls. Job security for Curtis Fleming is not very good right now because of my 2 daughters.
Wow.
They're better looking. They just got an incredible glowing personality, to the point to where in the last year, and we've designed our own Fly Rod Chronicles signature rod, and again, you can tell I'm that kind of person where I'm going to go do my homework. Who's the best rod maker? Where's the best graphite? Where's how do we change the ergonomics of the handle to make it better? My daughters have that spirit, and as we were testing the rod over the last year, they both have broke 2 apiece IGFA world records.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, my wife had to get in on the action, and she went out and broke one.
Wow.
And her deal was, she lost a sister to cancer, and she's like, I want to make a show. Every other year, every even year, the pink salmon run in Alaska, and she said, I want to catch a pink salmon, and I'm going to fish until I catch the world record on a 8-pound class tippet, line class world record in honor of my sister. And you know what? We went to Alaska. We made it happen. And so they all have IGFA world records. And like I said, now as we're planning trips, they're like, Dad, I'm in. I'm there. Right now we're planning a trip to Cuba, and we're going to be over there for 16 days. We're going to the Seychelles. We really love promoting our home state in West Virginia. We think we got the greatest and prettiest backyard in the world, and but seeing these other places are incredible, and it's neat now that I went from not having any fishing buddies, true buddies that when it was time to go, these girls are packed, they're ready to go.
Wow. That's pretty amazing, Curtis. That's awesome.
Thank you. I'm a blessed man. I always tell people if it ends tomorrow, and Jeff, I know, I can tell you're very driven, and you're a believer. And on the way to this podcast, I stopped by to see a friend at the funeral home, and around her casket, and she lived a great life, and I heard stories. I heard nothing about money. I didn't hear anything about how much money she left behind. I didn't hear anything but the great stories when they went camping, when they used to go fishing, and how they take the kids to Disney World. When it's done and it's over, I want that to be my last thoughts of, wow, there's nothing unturned. It's not a stone out there that's unturned. I want to be able to say, I gave my family, my daughters, and gave our TV show everything I had.
The book that started this whole podcast and everything is called Chasing Daylight. And I've referenced it a few times on the podcast. And it's a story of a man who had brain cancer, and the doctors basically said, you got 6 months to live. And him being the type A personality he was, he's going to document this, and he's going to die the best way possible. And he documents like every moment in that, in the reality that this thing's going to end one day. Like this ride doesn't go on forever. That puts things in perspective. And when I talk to people, the people who have made strides in life and have done great things, it seems like that's a common trend, that they understand that their time is limited and they have that perspective. I mean, how often do you reflect on that, Curtis, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. Honestly, often I put something, and I try to stay as active as I can on social media, and my daughters help, and our production, everybody gets involved, and I try to keep as active as I can, and I just put something out there that about my church service, and I just asked people, where'd you have church today? And it was Sunday, and I've had some of my best church sessions and sermons just wearing a pair of waders or a pair of flat shoes and being out in the water. And it's like you asked, I mean, it's humbling. Last year when I was inducted into the Legends of the Fly Hall of Fame, I noticed I was the only one that was living.
Wow.
And
wow.
And it put things into perspective of, wow, these men and women has done some great things, and that's what I want to leave behind. The great basketball coach Bobby Knight has said, I don't want to be remembered as how many games I won. I want to be remembered as how many fish I caught. So I reflect on this over and over, and especially when I'm out of the house and I'm on the road, and I reflect on not only the good but the bad. We have a saying when things get bad. The fishing can really never be bad because you're fishing. But the snakes, the bug bites, the sunburn, the missed flights, the sleeping in the airports, the flat tires, everything that we do, we always say when it gets bad and we get frustrated, we say, you know what? At least we're not back home underground digging coal.
Oh man, yeah.
And it is it's a pinch me, and again, I think something else and it's funny how people are like, what's next week's show? What's going, and it's the comment that we get right now is, why can't it be an hour show? Why's it got to end like that? And it's neat because each week that you turn on Fly Rod Chronicles, I went to Montana and went to the Madison River and never took a fly rod. And you know how many fly fishermen, how many guides that could not do that. And I floated for 5 days on the Madison River and never picked up a fly rod. Now you'll understand when I finish this part of the story. I did this with a group called TAPS, and I was with 36 fathers that lost their sons or daughters in war. And we do as a country, we do such a much better job, and we can never do enough for our veterans. But we do a much better job than what we did in the 70s, and history's history. But sometimes we don't forget, or sometimes we do forget that it's not just the veterans that suffer. It's mom and dad. It's aunt and uncle. It's brother and sister.
Right.
And to be able to float down that river and see the pain go away for a week, to, not totally go away, but to be able to have conversation with their peers, it just completely humbling. And I think that's what makes our show different, because we could be on the Madison River having that show that is very serious, tells a great story, to the following week I could be fishing with Jerry West and him and I shooting free throws against each other. And now the good news about that is I get to edit the show, so I can make it look like I beat Jerry West, right?
Kobe Bryant.
That's right. But we've been coined as reality fly fishing because we try to show, we try to show everything, and you'll see my back cast is in trees a lot, Jeff. You mentioned Rick Pope earlier, and when we designed the Fly Rod Chronicles fly rod together, and Lefty Cray was involved, and he's like, wow, he said, that's a great stick there you got. He's like, have you noticed anything different on it? And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. I was like, on my back cast, it puts me at least 7 feet more into the trees. And fly fishing can be as serious as you want it to be.
Right.
I use it as an escape. I have taken so many people from that 9 to 5 grinding job to just hating life to, oh my gosh, I can't wait till Saturday.
Wow. Yep. I get it, Curtis. Yeah.
People has asked me, Curtis, when did you know that you made it? And I had a friend who's been an incredible advisor to me that said, you know what? You'll know when you made it when half the population likes you and the other half hates you. and I said, Ryan, I'm never going to make it. And he's like, no, you're doing well. And I said, no, I'm never going to make it. I said, I can't deal with people hating me. I'm not going to let that happen. And he said, well, did you read your social media today? He said, apparently you touched a fish in Idaho too long out of the water, and there's some guy that's challenging you to a fist fight on St. Joe River.
Oh, I know that.
Oh,
oh man.
So again, back to comedy. And you know what? I truly, I'm not in this to be the greatest fly fisherman in the world. I'm not, the common denominator email that we get is, after watching your show, I felt like I was with my friends or my buddy, and I escaped for 30 minutes, and I just felt like I went fishing with you.
Mm. That's why you're successful, Curtis. That's it, man.
Yeah.
You're not out to prove anything. It's just telling other people's stories. And that's why I'm so happy you came on our podcast, because that's exactly what we've set out to do. So, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, Curtis, obviously you've given your time, your times that you air. But if someone wanted to find you on your social media channels, on your website, or any links that you'd like promoted, can you let us know where people could find you, or maybe where people could pick up a Curtis Fleming fly rod?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, talking about humbling, I'm sitting here looking at our Facebook and our fan page, and it looks like by the end of the week we will hit 600,000 followers on Facebook.
Wow.
And gosh, it just seems overwhelming. And so Fly Rod Chronicles.tv is in television, is where you can find everything about us and what we're about. And from there, you can venture off to our YouTube channel, to our networks that we're on, to, all of our social media outlets. Again, I'm blessed to have, a teenage and early 20-year-old daughters who says, Dad, those shorts, that picture, and those shoes are not going to work on social media. And so, what, a lot of times we're in the jungle. A lot of times we're far from cell service. But we really do stay tuned to social media, and the viewers out there, we really try to keep up and try to, if someone has a suggestion and we think, oh man, they're just being a critic. Well, you know what? There's really no bad criticism out there. People can say bad things, and you know what? You take it and you move on. But we try to stay active and just like our next fishing trip. I mean, wherever it may be, it may be with a veteran, it may be with a school teacher, it may be with our governor here in the state of West Virginia, it may be one time we broke down in Montana and had to get our car fixed, and went into the garage and asked the guy how long it would be. And he said, it's going to be quite a while, but I'm going home. And we said, well, have you ever fly fished? And he said, no. And I said, well, come on, we're going to make you famous. You're going fishing with us today if you give us a ride to the river.
Uh-huh.
And it was one of the coolest shows that we've done. You know, here's a mechanic in the middle of Montana that's never fly fished. That next thing we know, we're floating down a river doing an incredible show.
That's awesome, man. That's great. Well, thank you very much for spending some time with us. We'll be sure to put all of your links on our website at remotenopressure.com. And we will link up all your social media as well. And we thank you very much, Curtis. Thank you very much for being with us.
Jeff, thanks for having me. And again, you know, looking at what you're doing and looking at remote, no pressure, the industry has needed something like this. It's needed because you know what? When these people pass, when Bob Clouser passes, and it'll happen, and Curtis Fleming passes, and when Rick Pope passes, you're capturing something that will live on forever. And I tell you, I have really enjoyed getting to know you, looking at what you're doing, what you're accomplishing, and the industry is really needed this. And your future is very bright. You're going to be iconic in the fly fishing world. This is awesome.
I don't know what to say. I really appreciate that, Curtis. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Curtis, and thank you for listening to another episode of the Remote No Pressure podcast. Be sure to check out remotenopressure.com, sign up for our mailing list, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, send us some pictures. We'd love to share them with our community. And until next time, go fishing.